Good afternoon and welcome to the October 5th informational meeting. First item on the agenda is a staff report. We have no report today. Next item is Mayor Munson's office. I believe Director Rowenhorst is here to speak on something.
Gene Rowenhorst, Director of Finance, and I want to thank the council for allowing me to. Is that working? We'll see once. I want to thank the council for being so patient and letting us discuss this topic a little bit here.
Gene, I don't think those are on.
Huh?
Are the buttons pushed?
The lights are on. Yep.
Okay.
Lights are on. What we wanted, what you're going to see in your next set of materials that you get from the clerk's office, and that there's a resolution in there that we need to adopt to allow us to take advantage of something called redevelopment zoning of the city. And what it is, if you recall, last time when we worked on the last bond issue, we looked at something called Build America bonds, but we decided not to do them because we were only worth about $5,000, something like that difference, doing Build America bonds. Well, since that time, there's been a new bond type come out under the stimulus program that President Obama has been working on, and they're called recovery zone bonds. And those recovery zone bonds break down into two categories. One is for economic development, and the other grouping is for facility bonds. And these are specifically allocated to cities. And Sioux Falls has been allocated $13,288,000 in economic development bonds and $19,933,000 in facility bonds. Now, what we're looking at is the flood control bonds, and they probably we're about 99% certain that they will fall under the economic development category. And for that, we've got, like I said, we've got $13,288,000 that we can issue of those type bonds. The good news is the way they operate, they're issued as taxable bonds, taxable rates, and then we get a 45% rebate from the federal government on every time we make a payment. And you've got in front of you, you should have a copy of the ordinance or the resolution, and then the map, which is basically a map of the city limits. And then you've got a sample run of how this thing would work as far as the payoffs and what it saves you. And you can see going across the top of the, and I'm talking about this particular piece of paper. You can see by going across the top what a standard tax-exempt bond would cost to pay back. Use the recovery zone, then the other one you use the recovery zone bonds that are tax exempt, and what goes in there, and you can see the numbers it comes up to, and that's about $5 million in subsidy payments. But the savings is the key one under the next columns, the savings or cost. And down at the bottom you can see that the savings is $1,551,000, and that's just raw numbers. If you discount it at a rate, I believe they used like 3.5%. The value or the savings is $2,277,000. So it's a very, very hefty save to issuing these bonds. And all we need to do, like I say, is declare the city a redevelopment zone, and we're off and running. It's pretty simple. There's nothing really sharp about it.
Councilor Staggers?
Yes, Gene. This recovery zone means any area designated by the city as having significant poverty, unemployment, rate of home foreclosures, or general distress. That's not true about Sioux Falls, though.
Well, what you have to do is go on down to the next paragraph. Oops. What did I do? Hold on a minute. According to our legal counsel, where we fit in at is the term recovery zone, and the city's purpose of sections that the code is hereby designated to be an area denoted on the map. But the second paragraph is the one where we get in under, according to our legal counsel.
Which paragraph? The second paragraph?
Second paragraph, second whereas.
The City Council hereby finds that the recovery zone described above meets the requirements of Section 1400U-1 of the U.S. Code, and that the area therein is an area having significant poverty, unemployment, rate of home foreclosure, or general distress.
No, the second whereas the recovery zone, any area designated by the city as having significant poverty, unemployment, rate of home foreclosures, or general distress, any area designated by the city as economically distressed by reason of closure or realignment of a military installation pursuant to a defense closed contract, and any area in which the designation as an empowerment zone or a renewal community is in effect. And that's where the floodplain takes into effect there again.
But we're declaring the whole city.
Yes, and that is done because each time you do a bond issue, you would have to work through this again, and our legal counsel is advising us to declare the entire city. This is the way Minneapolis did it. And then you're always set up when a new set of bonds come out that you can just go ahead and issue them under the redevelopment bonds. Now, there will not be a lot of these done. There's been about 250 of them, I believe, that have actually been done nationwide. But the redevelopment bonds will have to be issued by December 31 of 2010. 2010. And then after that, they can't be issued anymore, unless something was happened to extend them or something. But
Well,
and this resolution is the one we've copied it from Minneapolis.
yeah, I guess Minneapolis can do it, but I mean, like, we don't have any military installation. But number 3, in any area for which a designation as an empowerment zone or renewal community is in effect. What does that mean?
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Because, even though Minneapolis does it, I think we ought to be truthful. I don't think this is really being truthful. We're going to be voting on this tonight, is that right?
No. This comes up next week.
Okay, next week. So, I think our city attorney should be talking to us about this language.
Well, like I say, our legal counsel, Betsy Abbey, is the one that designed these for us.
Well, then,
She's the one we've always used for these
Yeah.
for the bond transactions.
so I think she should tell us what's going on here. Because to me, this is not Sioux Falls.
Well, I would think that my 2 cents is that we would fall under the general distress when our sales tax receipts are down as far as they are, and we have highest unemployment the community's had in a number of years. So, there's no, absent any really specific hardline guidelines, I would think that, there's a couple of different ways that we could fall under this. And
That's one of the unique things about it. It is very broad, and what you're seeing in the resolution is basically what the government, the IRS, or whoever is actually running this thing, that they were very broad, and I think for a reason. That is to allow more people to use it than not use it.
But maybe when we have the resolution next week, we can have a little bit further explanation on it.
Yeah, we'll try and have Betsy here.
Any other question? Councilor Bennigan?
As I read this, Pat and Gene, it says any area designated. It does not say that the whole city of Sioux Falls has to be designated. So that's information I think needs to be clarified. And I would also say that having legal counsel give us an update, just emailing us on the references that she has applied these definitions to would be important. But again, this isn't about the whole city of Sioux Falls. It's about any area designated, and we can use the floodplain, we can use the things that Pat just mentioned, so I'm sure that it qualifies.
Yep.
It's not the intent of the council to ask her to travel down from Minneapolis, is it? I think if she, just a summary, is that okay with you, Councilor
No,
Snyder?
I'd rather she's been here many times before, and here we're talking about bond issues again. I would prefer that she would be here.
Is there anyone else on the council that would prefer that she be here? I'm not even sure if she's available. Obviously, we don't know.
I don't know. We'd have to check her calendar.
Councilor Litz?
I'd put forth that I'm perfectly capable of understanding an email that she might send down, and I don't know why the city would want to incur the extra expense of bringing legal counsel from another city down here for this.
Well,
Councilor Brown?
Gene, maybe she'd be available for a conference call to answer questions
Could probably do that.
instead of having her travel here.
I have to check with her.
Maybe we could start with an email, and then if there's not adequate, if there's still questions after that, if we can get, if we can get an email fairly in the next couple of days, and then if there's not adequate explanation, we can pursue the rest.
We'll do that.
Any other questions regarding this topic, or for Director Roanhorse? Councilor Jameson?
Gene, do you intend to include the whole city or just parts of the city?
The recommendation of both our council and our financial advisor is to include the entire city.
And I would basically think that it's probably under general distress would be your, I think that's a catch-all that probably somebody could agree to at least some general distress.
we're supposed to be doing well.
Well, this is stimulus money. It's meant to get things going again. And this is one way of getting some of it into a place like Sioux Falls.
Gene, would this, we're looking at the bonds now, I assume, is this the levy bond?
Yes,
That we're going to be doing
flood
coming
control.
up?
I refer to them as the flood control bonds.
Okay, what has occurred to me is why you include the whole city is we're wrapped with this. River goes all the way through the city and seems to wrap right through it quite fully, and I'm not sure. Obviously, some people are pretty distressed about this. I'm not sure if it falls under some of this here, but, the empowerment zone part is that really interests me. And like I say, the river, if this is for our levy raising project, the river does wend its way through the entire city, and I think that may be the justification or the rationale for including the whole town.
Councilor Staggers?
Yeah, Gene, you mentioned that 13.2 million and 19.3 million. What would we be using for the levies? The 19 million, 13 million, or exactly what?
We'd use the 13 million is most likely. It's not, it doesn't fit the other one. This is, we don't think it fits the other criteria as well.
So the 13 million is the economic issue,
The
isn't it?
13 million would be the one that we would use. That's what the plans are. That's what is built into those numbers that Jessica put together for us.
And then the 19.3 million facility bonds, we wouldn't,
That's more if you'd be doing a building or
yeah,
something.
so we would not be even touching that, huh?
I don't think so.
And we haven't even gone through the process of getting the bonds for the levies yet?
That's what this is for.
Yeah, so I mean, in other words, we haven't not gone out and sold any bonds yet for the levies?
No.
Yeah, okay.
We
I mean, we authorized it, but not sold.
Yes, they've been authorized,
Right.
but we have to declare these to be redevelopment zoning bonds before we actually issue them. You can't do it after the fact.
And then the balance would just be the traditional method then? Would there be a separate bond, or how does that?
Yeah, what happens, one of the things that makes this works real well is it works better on the long end of bonds. So what will happen is the bonds, not necessarily all of them, but primarily the bonds that go for the bridge will be the ones that will be covered by this particular resolution. So that the first rezoning bonds will come due, 10, 11 years out before they'll actually start paying down.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Rowenhorst or Councilor Anderson?
Yes, Gene, what I'd like on this here, just looking at this resolution, in the second paragraph, under number 3 there, the line that says any area which is designation as an empowerment zone or renewal community, questions on that? Who makes the designation? And then
That'd be the council.
definitions of those. Well, you said that legal counsel wrote that up, so I guess those would be my question, is who actually is making that designation? Hopefully it's us. And then their definition of the empowerment zone and renewal community would be something I'd like to see in an email.
Okay.
Any other questions for Councilor, or the council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Gene. Audit Committee, we have no report other than we'll have a presentation from Rich here in a little bit. Fiscal Committee,
No report?
Land Use Committee,
Well, we had a meeting last Monday, which lasted for about 2 hours, but I think we did make some progress when it comes to that proposed ordinance dealing with the campgrounds. It was long, extended discussion. They're on their 3rd revision right now, and so I think we're going to have a 4th revision, and I think we're making some good progress.
Councilor Knudsen.
Councilor Sagers, a question on that issue from the committee last week, and again, I was not there and could have attended, and was not there, and if I had been there, I probably would not have to ask this question, but I was just curious when I read that that you were interested in postponing this or having this new ordinance going to effect in January, and what would be since this is early October, what would be the reason? I mean, if we badly need a change in something, why would we wait till January, and what am I missing on that?
Okay. Yeah, the January in the Argus Leader was talking about, we're going to have another meeting dealing with it. So we haven't even passed it out of committee yet onto the City Council. So that'll be our 4th revision probably in January, so.
Oh, so
Yep.
so you mean that the Land Use Committee would meet again in January on this
Yes.
topic, even though the committee meets every month?
Well, in November and December, the way the meetings are scheduled, we're around Thanksgiving, we're also around
Okay.
Christmas, so that's the reason we had it delayed until January.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Councilor Staggers? Seeing none, okay. Public Service Committee.
We have our agenda set for next week. We'll be revisiting affordable housing, and then 2 issues sort of after the meeting we had in the Cathedral District, revisiting the code enforcement, and then this one I believe actually, I think you may have signed to land use, the rental registration ordinance, revisiting that. Is that going to land use?
We talked about it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Remember?
Well, I think that came out of the night of the...
At the Cathedral neighborhood and Terrace Park
Oh, I see.
neighborhoods.
You know, I would, I'm flexible either way, whatever you guys want to do. I don't know which committee's a little bit overtaxed right now.
Well, right now, land use, I know we have, we're getting rather full on our schedule. In addition to that, November and December.
Here's an idea.
Issue.
We didn't have a meeting, or we don't have a meeting, or didn't have a meeting for fiscal committee, and while it's not really a fiscal matter, I mean, all the council moves around these committees anyways. Fiscal chair, would you be willing to accept an assignment of the ordinance for property owner?
No
rental property?
problem.
Okay. Maybe if everybody's okay with that, we'll just push it over to fiscal since they seem to have a little bit lighter workload.
I think they'll have plenty of company that night.
Could be, probably. Okay. Any other, anything else for Public Service Committee?
I'd just add, pending items, we also have noise ordinance and dance hall ordinance reviews, but we will discuss those in December because that's when the police chief was able to make our committee.
Sounds great. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll move into City Council open discussion. I have one item. I think there's been, was it maybe 6 months ago, we changed the designation for the distribution list for the City Council to be just the 8 city councilors on our emails. so that when somebody types in city council, the emails go to the 8 city councilors and not the staff, which was previous the case. And I think there's been a concern that maybe some of the city clerks have not been kept up to speed on the different events or things that we've been having. So I'm just throwing it on the table. I want to see what everybody's response is. But I'm wondering if we should make another classification or another list, city council and clerks. So we would call it that, so that when, if director wants to make sure the city council's aware of it, then also inform the clerks, it would be more informative. It would be my concern is that I think many of us thought before the change that when somebody typed in city council that those emails were going to 8 city councilors and no one else. And I think I personally would prefer to see it stay that way. But this would be a way to, on the email system, to be able to make sure that the appropriate emails are going to the clerks as well. Councilor Knudsen?
Yeah, I'm fine with whatever your suggestion is on that. The only thing is I just didn't remember, as addicted as I am to email, I just don't remember that many emails just to city councilors recently. So I guess I'm a little bit surprised about your comments, and plus the fact that I assume the chair and the vice chair still meet regularly with the city clerk. And so anyway, I'm just a little surprised, but it's not a big deal to me.
Yeah, and we do on Thursdays, and maybe the chair and vice chair haven't been as diligent about trying to pass on those emails that we get as we should have been. But this might be a way to help alleviate that. And if there's any concerns or anybody has any other ideas, I'm certainly more open to them. But are there any comments or?
I think that's a good idea, Pat, and I'm surprised it wasn't kind of on automatic, because my assumption was the clerks should know everything that is going on in this council, and they would be the ones also to assist us in being a little more diligent in getting the word out on
And I
things.
think one of the example was maybe some of the public meetings that we've had recently, like even this morning, the development-driven street meeting. I don't know that it may have, but I don't believe that the city clerks were informed on that to put it on the public meeting agenda. So that's just one example.
Yeah, it's just basically, in my own case, I found several times when I wanted to speak with one of the clerks about an issue that had been emailed to the entire city council, and they weren't aware of the email at all. It's nice to at least have them aware of the issue when you want to ask some questions.
So Tamara, can we put that onto the to-do list?
Tamara Jorgensen, Assistant City Clerk. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I would make a recommendation to the council that Deborah Owen's name be added to your existing city council group email listing. She is your chief of staff. She is there to serve you. She's very good at communicating with us if we need to be working on something. And if you do that, I think if you have a separate contact listing with all of you guys plus all of us, and it's a separate one, we're still going to miss out on information that we need to, so we can perform our jobs 100% to serve you. So that would be my recommendation.
Councilor Brown?
I have no problem with that, because essentially any email that goes to the 8 of us is public record anyway.
Yeah, I would be opposed to that. I think that when somebody types in city council, that those emails should go to 8 city councilors and no one else. But again, I would not be opposed to a designation of city council and clerk or clerks, or however they want to do that. But again, whatever the majority of the council wants to do.
Well, I think your suggestion is actually a good compromise, because sometimes when elected officials want to visit with each other, it is public record, but, or whatever. Honestly, I think that happens so infrequently. I mean, it's just so infrequently even, but it seems to me that would be a good compromise as far as the kinds of issues that we're talking about here. I mean, I don't know. I just, I don't see very many emails to just city councilors, so.
And on that, Dee, I agree. I think that if it's going to the entire city council, I think, and as Vernon has said, that's open records. So having our chief of staff being included in that, I don't think violates any, confidentiality for the council, because we each have our own individual accounts too. So if we want to keep something a little more private, we send it that way.
Yeah, and Of course, the example that I'd call out is, 6 months ago, when I sent out an email to city council, I expected it to go to 8 city councilors and not the clerks, and it caused a little bit of a ruffle. And I understand they're public documents, and if they want to be made public, so be it. But I just think if somebody in the system wants to send an email to 8 city councilors, and that the expectation is when they type in city council that it's going to 8 city councilors and not anyone else. And so that's what I want, just to kind of protect that expectation from people sending that. But again, whatever, we haven't heard from a couple of you, so if anybody else would like to chime in.
I'll chime in. I think the idea of keeping the city council pure is probably right, but absolutely we need to include Deb and the city clerk staff into other things. You were suggesting another mailbox,
another mailbox would be
another
city
phone
council
book?
and clerks, and we try to get the directors and the assistant directors and the staff to use that one to make sure everybody was, the clerk stayed informed as well.
I can see where it's going to happen, where they just hit city council and they're done with it. They're not going to do another one, or they'll...
There might need to be an education process with it, but again, whatever the council wants to do.
I know in the meantime, Pat and I have pledged to try to do a little better job of forwarding those on to the rest of you, or to the city clerk's office, but it's not easy. We think we take it for granted, or everybody knows about it, and come to find out, people don't. The staff doesn't, so...
Do I need to
Councilor
query the majority of the council for vote, or how do you want to do this?
Councilor Benning?
It really doesn't make any difference to me. Frankly, it's open conversation, so if it's by email or in a group more than 4, it's not going to make any difference. So let's just make it convenient and comfortable for everybody.
I've lost track here, then where are we at?
I'm not so hung up on it that I wouldn't want or not include those city clerks, because I think we're going to miss something and we don't need to duplicate a bunch of work. Let's just include them. I mean, so that's one.
Councilor
Okay,
Anderson?
why don't I just do a vote, Pat? And the yes
Councilor
means
Anderson?
it's,
Okay, once again, I think that if we just include Deborah, who is our chief of staff, who starts all our administrative processes to the city council email, that should take care of everything. Because anything she needs to pass down to the rest of the staff, she can do at that time. And I think that resolves the issue and keeps that confidentiality of the council too, or, what aspects there is of those emails.
Okay. Councilor Staggers, you're the only one we haven't heard from.
Oh, I guess my inclination is to, have Deb included on the email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we'll include Deborah on the city council distribution list for the emails. Okay?
is everybody okay with that? So that email needs to come from you to IT, that she needs to be added on.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, other council discussion.
Well, last week, we were talking about the issue of the council chair also running for mayor. And the reason I'm bringing this up now again is because we had a couple council members that were not here last week to take part in the discussion. But the main thing I just wanted to focus on was that, Pat, I think, did a very good thing by sending out an email inquiring as to, after he announced that he's running for mayor, whether the rest of the council members wanted him to continue. And so with the issue of the PSAs going on the cable TV channel with Pat, and I guess the mayor's also involved in that too, to fill out these surveys, I guess this just kind of brought it to the forefront again. It is getting into kind of a complicated situation because the PSA that's going to be running on cable TV cannot be run on Channel 16 because since Pat is running for mayor, it cannot be on 16, but it's going to be on the other channels on cable TV. And then also there's the issue, too, of the cards being sent out requesting those people who get the surveys to fill them out, signed by the mayor and also Pat. So whatever my colleagues on the council want to do in regard to this issue, I think it's important for us to discuss it.
Well, as I said in my email and previously when I was running for chair, that I'll follow whatever the wishes of the council are, so whatever you would like to do. Councilor Knudsen?
Well, just a condensed version of what I said last week, and the only reason I'm even speaking this early in the conversation is because a couple of my colleagues were gone last week. But I continue to believe that Councilor Costello does a very nice job chairing our group, and we have a written policy that does not indicate in any fashion that if a person decides to run for another office that he or she should resign or should even consider resigning. And I noticed today, again, when Councilor Costello opened the meeting, he didn't even say his name. I just believe that he is an excellent city councilor, and as chairperson, I think he should participate as the chair when we're doing surveys and so forth, so that the council is represented. And anyway, I just am a strong proponent of leaving him in place as our chair.
I wasn't here last week, but I'd say let's put it to a vote and put it to bed. Let's end the discussion.
Do you want to vote right now, right here? Is that, or what do you?
No,
want
we
to
would
do?
have to calendar it because
Yeah.
it's an official action, so we'd have to, we've missed today's deadline, right, Tamara? So it'd have to be, it'd be for the third meeting in October, correct?
Tamara Jorgensen, Assistant City Clerk. As it's not an ordinance or resolution, we could still put it on next week's agenda, if that's the wishes of the majority of the council.
And I'm just curious, just talking out loud here, if we want to really get it done, just get it over with, do you want to walk it in tonight?
I think we should follow our own procedures. Let's do it next week.
Councilor Bennigan?
There's a significant chance that I won't be here next week, so I would prefer that we not do it then.
Councilor Knudsen?
Is it, when it's an internal administrative matter for us, does that require an evening vote? Because I realize that ordinances and resolutions, of course, do. I'm very well aware of that. But when it's a housekeeping matter among us,
Well-
does that rise to that level that we have to have it calendared and all this other mumbo jumbo, so to speak?
I would, well, of course, when we elect the chair and vice chair, we do that in an evening
Yeah,
meeting,
traditionally,
through
yeah.
a resolution. I don't really know if that's.
Mr.
if that's
Costello,
something-
if I may?
Yep.
It's considered official council action to nominate a chair and a vice chair, so it does have to occur at a city council meeting.
I don't know that that's what we're doing here, though. Councilor Anderson?
I guess I'm looking at this, and Pat, I'm very happy with your duties as a council chair, but I think the question here is the PSAs and the other things that are going out to the public. And would it be maybe a compromise if we just had those separated and you let Councilman Jameson handle those, and since that you're now up for mayor?
Right.
And
Hey,
maybe
whatever
that
the
was
council wants to do.
I don't know. I'm just putting that out there and just saying that I don't see a reason to remove you from being chair, but maybe taking a look at these PSAs and that if this PSA is not going to be airing on Channel 16, then isn't that a gray area that we're putting it on cable instead?
Councilor Knudsen?
Well, very respectfully, I just add on that part of the discussion. Again, the reason that, as you all know, but I'm just sharing this for the public too, that the PSA is, not aired on Channel 16 is due to an executive order, by the mayor that once a person announces that he or she no longer appears on Channel 16. So to me, that's quite a separate matter. And the fact that a postcard is going out to 3,000 people with a city councilor's name and a mayor's name is just so incredibly insignificant to me that I don't know, it's times like this where I don't know, I just sometimes shake my head.
Well, I think what Kenny Anderson is saying is that, to try to get this resolved for the future. Now, I don't know if this is the case or not, but when the surveys are actually sent out, Pat, you might be able to answer the question. In the instructions and thanking people for doing this, I suspect the mayor's name is on the letter. Is that where?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And, yeah, so.
Councilor Knudsen.
One other thought, and then, I think we might as well, calendar it, and, like Councilor Brown said, just, put it to rest. But I would just like to say, again, very respectfully, that at the point that this council chose this chairperson, I myself thought it was most gracious that he chose other members up here who were either rumored to be running for city council or had filled out their paperwork to run for city council as committee chairs to try to even things up as much as possible. And I hope that you all noticed that. It was not a coincidence, I don't believe. And I thought it was quite generous and quite classy, and I just want to mention that.
And just to reply to, and that's once again why I still support Pat being council chair, is he's done his job. But once again, now this is a new issue. This is a gray area that we have not had as a council before, and maybe this is a time to take a look at this and make sure that we try to clean it up.
A couple councilors we haven't heard from. Would anybody else like to weigh in on this before? Councilor.
I'll weigh in. I work in television production. That's the industry that I'm in. And my disappointment in this whole matter really is, I think you all saw the email I sent that started some of this, I suppose, is that the executive order allowed or did not allow for Pat to be on Channel 16. And the PSA that was done is not a workable PSA that works on Channel 16. So given that information, I would think it would be just a better decision not to start down that path. I think it would have been a great idea to have the rest of the council involved in the PSA from the beginning. Truly, it's this council that's going to benefit from the information that comes. The next mayor is going to benefit from it, or the next council. So the council chair doesn't have any more interest than any one of us on this council today, or the guys that are going to be here in April, or May, I guess it is. So it's just my opinion that from the beginning, we should have started off with a different process, and that's where we failed. And even if we just did a new PSA today that could air on Channel 16, that's the bottom line. That would be just fine. I think that would solve the problem. The mayor is interested in changing his executive order, and that's fine. That makes sense. But a new PSA is not out of the world to create, and we could easily do that and get it on Channel 16 and put this thing to rest. It's just my frustration actually is really from the beginning that we should have started out on that path as a group, as a whole city council together, wanting to get this information out, because we are the ones that are going to benefit, not just the chair, not just the old mayor. The mayor leaving town is going to have very little to do with it. So I think it's the council's, I think that's where we goofed.
Speaking of that, wasn't there 3 councilors that were part of that group, and 3 or 4 councilors that were part of that group with choosing some of the open? Who all was involved in that?
What was the question?
Finalizing the questions, and it was part of that. And wasn't the PSA that was done, wasn't that distributed part of that information several weeks ago?
Not in the committee meeting we had about it.
But wasn't it in a separate email several weeks ago?
Several weeks ago was the new PSA that
Right.
came out. That's when my email came out about just why not change it? We got to run it on Channel 16. It's ridiculous if we don't. What do we got the channel for? And that's where it started.
I guess it was my understanding that the script of it was run through that committee or that group of 3 or 4 counselors.
We ran through questions, and then there was some drafts sent out, and then a final draft sent to the council. But as far as scripting, no.
Okay. Councilor Knudsen.
Well, and again, this, as you all know, this is only the second year for this survey that the city, the administration and the council have partnered on this survey. So there's not a long track record as far as the PSA and so forth. And I believe that I was chairperson at the time of the first one. I think I did the PSA, and, I was like, not a big deal, frankly. I didn't have any, but I guess I am a real practical person. I actually do I try hard to practice unifying groups at difficult times. And I'd just like to remind you, as far as all this PSA business is concerned, that, really, guys, this is almost over. The postcards have already gone out to 3,000 people. The surveys are going out early this week to 3,000 people, and they will fill them out or not fill them out, and they will return them to the national folks, and then we will get a printout. So, this is, for all practical purposes, except for the future and what, the next council wants to do about this, or whether if one of you is elected mayor and you want to void that executive order, you're welcome to do that. But I'm just saying, as far as this PSA business and the survey is concerned, for all practical purposes, it's over. I think we should move on and tackle the cathedral and the, Terrace Park areas and get something done that matters. I think it's time.
I hardly doubt that this is something that doesn't matter. If I could argue with you a moment, that I can't imagine anything almost more important than getting this information back, to know exactly where we stand and what we should change. I'm sure you feel that way as well. I think you're referring more to the process in place right now.
Yes, of course.
Just want to be clear.
Yes, of course. I'm a strong supporter of the survey. But I'm just saying the surveys have gone out, so, let's go on. Let's move on. PSAs, for all practical purposes, they won't even need to be aired much longer because it's almost over.
Councilor Bennigan.
I'm trying to be politically correct, so I'm going to be quiet for a little while, but it seems to me it's a lot to do about nothing. And frankly, one of the reasons politicians get bad names for themselves is politically posturing. I think this thing is overkill. I think it's time to move on and do something that's frankly important to this community. And if you ask 20 people on the street, they couldn't even give you 5 of the 8 council members' names, probably. So I'm not worried about who's the council chair and who did the PSA and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important to show some results and to do the results of the community, and that's what they expect us to do. So I think it's time to move on.
Councilor Staggers.
One thing about the citizenry, they don't like elected officials saying something and not following through. And so this is just simply a follow-through on what was said back in August about, having the council members express their wishes on this issue. And that's what it boils down to. And so now we're finally following through.
Councilor Bennigan.
I have no comment. I'll take the high road.
Councilor Litz, you're the only one we haven't heard from.
I was going to yawn loudly into the microphone, but I thought that might be rude. So,
Any other comments? Okay.
So, Mr. Costello, what your staff needs to know is whether or not the majority of the council wants the re-election of the chair and vice chair to be calendared for a future meeting. And if the answer is yes, I would ask that you respect Mr. Bennigan's schedule and we put it on the meeting of 10/21 instead of next week.
I don't think that's what we were talking about.
I think we've got two different conversations going here.
Yeah,
I think we've
PSA
got-
kind of dominated this.
Yeah.
This is a separate from PSA, even though that's worthy conversation and you guys need to have it. But the question now is, do you want your staff to calendar the reelection of the chair and vice chair for a future meeting?
Why don't you just go around the horn and...
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair, if I could say, I guess what I was thinking of is that simply we take a vote, at one of our council meetings as to whether, which way we want to go.
Okay.
Pat said that, in his email, whatever the wishes of the council members are. And so, to me, we have to find out what the wishes of the council members are about whether we think it's appropriate that the chair continues because he's running for mayor. I mean, to me, that's it.
Okay, so if that's the issue, and I just propose this, and we can do it however you want to do, but why don't we just get it out on the table right now? Everybody tell me what they want me to do, and I'll do it.
That's where I
You
was
can't vote at an informational
We're not
meeting.
voting,
No,
we're just expressing our opinions on what
Okay.
people want to do. It's not a resolution, we're not taking any official action, we're just, this is an informational, let's get the information on the table. Is that good with everybody?
It's fine.
Kenny, you want to start it off?
Pat, as I said before, I'm happy with your performance as chair. So I vote to leave you there.
Don't vote.
Okay, my opinion.
Councilor Staggers, I think we know where you're at.
Yes, right.
Councilor Jameson?
You should vote.
I didn't hear him.
He said they should vote, should have it for a vote.
Isn't that the question?
Yep.
Well, not really, I didn't think we were going to vote, but
To vote or not to vote?
My understanding is you're asking for feedback on whether or not they want it on a future meeting. Am I wrong?
no, I think the feedback was whether or not they wanted me to continue as a chair or not. I mean, that's what I thought it was. And I think we got heard.
It's about the same thing what we
Yeah.
talked about here, so.
Okay.
I'd like to stay as chair, so I'll express that opinion.
My preference is to leave our chair and vice chair in place and to not calendar this for next week, the next week, or the next week, or even the next week.
There's no need to vote, in my estimation.
My preference would be to vote.
I don't care to revisit this issue again.
Okay, should we move on? Unless there's any other comments?
No, I don't have any.
I think that the wishes of the council are to move on and not schedule any vote, but I guess, councilors are certainly can bring forth their own resolution at any time and schedule that appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Any other open discussion items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into presentations. We have a internal audit report, water reclamation by Rich Hoaxel, lead auditor.
Good afternoon, City Council. Rich Hoaxel, lead internal auditor. We have a brief presentation on the water reclamation audit. This went through committee and was approved at our last meeting, and you should have the hard copy in front of you. I apologize. I don't believe it was available electronically Friday or last week, but you have a hard copy, and we'll go through a brief summary of what we found. The water reclamation plant services the City of Sioux Falls, the City of Brandon, and 2 sanitary sewer districts. And sometime next year, we think Harrisburg is going to come on the line, and we'll be performing services for them. The water reclamation plant provides sanitary sewer and storm sewer services for those districts and those communities I just mentioned. Computer's a little slow, but we'll get going here. Anyway, the audit objectives are to evaluate the internal control structure overall, and then do some detailed testing on several of those internal controls. And another objective was to determine if Water Rec is maintaining our infrastructure through routine maintenance and replacement planning. And on page 5 and 6 of your report, we noted some noteworthy accomplishments. Efforts to reduce sewer overload during large rainstorm events are effective. There's a little bar graph on your report. On page 5 there, it's showing that the backups per 1,000 customers has been reduced. It's been cut in half, about from 1 backup per 1,000 from 1996 to 2002. And since then, we're down to about 0.5 backups per 1,000 customers. So there's been significant progress there. And also efforts since 2004 to correct that problem with the storm sewer system are showing results. That was a case where we had a number of neighborhoods that were getting flooded through some major rain events. The water was also going into the sanitary sewer system. We're getting backups in people's basements, and we've made significant progress on that. So we just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of that. When we talk about that overall internal control structure, I'm not going to go into great detail, but there's 5 areas that we looked at. You can see the control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication and monitoring. And we concluded that that structure was properly designed and operating correctly. And in order to do that, we used a kind of a new audit technique for us as we used some structured interviews with management and staff. We asked them a series of questions on those 5 areas, and that was a new technique, and we thought that was successful. And we'll probably use that, the structured interview approach in the future. We also do standard audit techniques, so looking at documents and looking at financial records and that sort of thing. But that was something new for us on this audit. On page 13 and 14 of your report, we had a conclusion on the infrastructure that we felt that and concluded that Water Rec Management is maintaining the current infrastructure properly. Significant resources are being spent to repair, maintain, and expand the sanitary sewer system. In addition, there's a full-time video crew that has been videotaping all the sewer lines in the city. There's hundreds of miles of these lines, and they have a truck that goes around the town, and they get down there and they videotape the condition of the sewer lines so they can tell exactly what areas need work and which areas are satisfactory. So we think we're doing a good job at maintaining infrastructure. We did have a number of recommendations. One of those recommendations had to do with taking care of in the commercial facilities, the grease and the oil traps. By city ordinance, the Public Works manager is responsible for verifying that all the commercial properties have been fitted with grease traps and that these traps are being maintained. And the city crews that we talked to and observed, they believe that that's a contributing factor in their workload is some of those areas of town where they have a lot of restaurants, and they're often called to clean out the sewer lines, and they believe that the grease and the fats that are getting in the sewer system could be a contributing factor to that. So when we researched the city ordinance, it says Public Works is to have some sort of inspection program for that. It didn't appear that that was being done, and we addressed that with management, and they were receptive to the idea that they need to start having more of a formal program to inspect those sewer traps or those grease traps. Excuse me. Overall, I can say that the audit went very well. We started out. Even before we did any audit work, we were invited by Public Works Management to talk to their management team. We talked about internal controls, what auditors do, what kind of things that we'd be looking at. We felt that was a good way to start. We had a good rapport with management and staff, and we felt the management was very responsive to the audit recommendations. So we had a good discussion there at the conclusion of the audit. Is there any questions I can answer at this time?
Councilor Knudsen?
Mr. Oakesall, when the city cleans out a sewer, is there any way of marking it or dating it or anything so that when other crews come upon it, I mean, I realize there's paperwork that's done, I'm sure of that, but is there any physical way that they're marked or dated in any place so that they know if it's been done recently, if another crew person comes upon it, or there's a complaint or a blockage or whatever?
I don't know if they physically mark it. Public Works could answer that specifically, but we were not aware that they do that.
I just thought of that.
I think the maintenance crews, though, I think they pretty much know. I think it's pretty much the same crews going around. I think they know where they've done the work, but they are very busy. And like I said, one of the contributing factors to their work, especially in the commercial districts, could be the lack of functioning traps there in restaurants and other facilities. So we thought that would improve the efficiency of the crews if the stuff wasn't getting down into the sewer lines, if it was getting appropriately stopped, so to speak. That would help allow them to do other things, perhaps, and cut down the workload.
Rich, as a part of that, was there any discussion about the slope of the lines and the amount of flow going through the lines as far as helping or hurting that scenario?
Well, we didn't have that discussion with management, but I'm sure that's a contributing factor. When we talked to the crews, they thought one factor in the lines getting clogged and whatnot is just the lack of the traps, but obviously there's other factors besides that.
Yeah. I happen to be aware of a particular situation where there's multiple restaurants on the end of a line, and there's not enough, I think that enough flow, and it happens to be a particularly flat line with quite maybe not as much slope.
I would imagine that, but intuitively I would think that would be a big factor. And I think they have a number, I think it's off the top of my head, I think 23 pumping stations around town, because they can't rely completely on gravity. They have to give the lines an assist, so that they have a number of these pumping stations around town to keep things moving. So,
Councilor Jameson.
I was just going to respond to Dee's question about tracking those lines. I took a tour of this operation, and what they're actually doing is going through and recording all of this footage, and it's logged digitally, so they can actually go back and look at any spot in the city. And while I was there, we referred to it as making dirty movies. Some of the things we saw down there were pretty rough, but it is pretty well tracked, and it's a great system. They're mapping out the whole city that way, so they can go back and 5 years and revisit those if they need be, and kind of see when and how long those systems last, and then step in. So,
Councilor Bennigan.
Rich, I'm wondering if you could make some comments on the last page of your report. You've done a 3-year history of budget versus actual.
yes.
Why is there such a wide variety of variances here?
For example, that I'm looking at one, it's 85th Street from Louise to Minnesota.
Well, I guess I'm looking at the whole total.
Oh, the whole total? Yeah, I think that's a case of sometimes the estimates are, when they're trying to figure out, especially in a 5-year CIP plan, when you're putting estimates out there, a lot of times you're getting a ballpark figure, and you're not always spending as much as you thought you would. But yeah, there is quite a difference in, for example, the budget column, the actual column. But in some cases, I think that it could be something as simple as that you get the bids in, and you thought the bid on a project would be $500,000, and it came in at $400,000. And sometimes you simply you had more budget than you needed in there. I think you also see that you get communications from the administration from time to time where they'll move that money around. I think you're getting some tonight. I believe it's on your agenda, where say a project is finished and you have some budget authority, and you'll just move it to a project that needs the funds. But some of those projects there's quite a bit of difference there, and I can't tell you that was the objective of this audit. But I think in the future, when we look at do a CIP audit, that'll be certainly something that we're going to look at in more detail. But that wasn't the objective of this particular audit. It's more just to show you how much money we're spending for infrastructure. Yeah.
I guess that's where I was going to go with this, because when you look at the difference, there's a dramatic difference, and my understanding is rate increases are based on actuals and projections. So if we're projecting 22 million and we only spent 11, that is a dramatic increase or dramatic change on the rates, I would guess.
Well, this is the capital expenditures, not the operating, of course. But
Right.
I think in the future when we have a CIP on the audit schedule, we'll look in more detail in that area. But that is a good point. Yes. But I can't answer your question specifically right now. So.
Mr. Staggers?
Yes, Rich, on the chart here dealing with the backups per 1,000 customers, I guess the question I have is, why don't we have the number for 2004? I mean, that's the year I was most interested in, when we really did have, those two 100-year storms. Why don't we have a number?
They did not include that backup data. I think they could provide that to you. This came from Public Works, obviously. That was that bad year that we had the basements flooded, in the central part of town. There was probably, I'm sure, a lot that year, and that's why they.
Can you get us that number for 2000?
Yeah, I can ask Public Works to get that to you, and then I can email the council with that number for 2004. Certainly.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions for Rich? Seeing none. Thank you very
Okay,
much,
thank
Rich.
you.
Any other discussion items before we adjourn on any matter? Seeing none, we are adjourned.